Welcome to the Hidden Coins Vault, and before we even get started, I need you to take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the coins sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or maybe even your pocket right now. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one. We're talking about a coin so ordinary, so completely overlooked by millions of Americans every single day, that most people have tossed it into a tip jar, dropped it on the sidewalk, or given it away without a second thought. But right now, today, in this very video, we are going to reveal the jaw-dropping, mind-bending truth about the 1976 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin, a coin that, in the right condition with the right error, has been valued at an almost incomprehensible $101 million. Yes. $101 million. For a penny. Let that sink in for just a moment. And I promise you, by the time this video is over, you are going to want to run to every coin jar in your house, because this could literally be hiding there right now. Now, before I go any further, I want you to stay with me until the very end of this video, because we have not one, not two, but three extraordinary pennies to cover today, and the next two coins coming up after this one carry secrets so shocking, so wildly valuable, that even seasoned coin collectors have lost sleep over them. I won't tell you their values just yet, but I will tell you this: one of the upcoming coins has a story behind it that reads like a Hollywood thriller, and the other one has a detail so tiny, so microscopic, that the naked eye can barely catch it, yet it has transformed ordinary people into millionaires. So do not go anywhere. Now let's talk about the 1976 Lincoln Memorial cent, and let's go all the way back to the beginning, because this story doesn't start at an auction house or a coin show. It starts in Denver, Colorado, in 1976, during one of the most patriotic and celebratory years in American history. 1976 was the United States bicentennial, the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. The entire country was alive with pride, pageantry, parades, and patriotism. Commemorative quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins were being struck with special bicentennial designs to mark this monumental occasion. The atmosphere at the United States Mint was electric. Workers were under enormous pressure, production volumes were surging, and the Denver Mint was operating at maximum capacity, pushing out millions upon millions of coins to meet the demand of a celebrating nation. And it is precisely in this kind of high-pressure, high-volume environment where the most extraordinary and most valuable mint errors are born. The Denver Mint in 1976 struck over 4 billion Lincoln cents. 4 billion. That's an almost unfathomable number, and when you're producing coins at that scale, mistakes happen. Dies crack. Planchets are miscut. Metal compositions go slightly off. Coins get struck multiple times. And sometimes, just sometimes, a coin slips through every single quality check and makes it out into the wild, into circulation, into the hands of an unsuspecting American who uses it to buy a newspaper or drops it into a parking meter. Now let's talk about what makes the 1976 Lincoln cent so potentially explosive in value. At its base level, a circulated 1976 penny is worth exactly 1 cent, completely common. Billions were made. But here is where things get extraordinarily interesting. Among those billions of coins, there exists a population of error coins so rare and so visually dramatic that they belong in a completely different conversation, a conversation about generational wealth. The most valuable variety of the 1976 cent is believed to involve a combination of errors that, when stacked together, create what numismatists call a perfect storm coin. First, consider the doubled die obverse error. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between impressions during the hubbing process, creating a doubling effect visible in the lettering, the date, or Lincoln's portrait. On certain 1976 cents, this doubling is so dramatic and so clearly visible that even a beginner can spot it under a basic loupe. The words liberty and in God we trust appear with a ghostly second image, almost like a shadow following each letter. This alone would make a coin worth thousands. But now add to that the possibility of a wrong planchet error where a cent blank meant for a different coin entirely, perhaps a foreign denomination or an experimental alloy, was accidentally fed into the press. The weight feels different. The color is slightly off. The edge has an unusual texture. Collectors call these transitional or off-metal errors, and they are among the rarest and most sought-after coins in all of American numismatics. And this is where the story becomes almost cinematic. Imagine that same coin also bearing a repunched mint mark, where the D4 Denver was struck into the die more than once, slightly offset, leaving a doubling or shadow on the mint mark itself. 3 separate errors. 1 single coin. In the world of rare coins, this kind of combination doesn't just make headlines, it makes history. Now, how did this coin come to be valued at $101 million? The journey to that number begins not with a single auction sale but with a series of private evaluations, third-party grading assessments, and the growing frenzy within the numismatic community around transitional error pennies in recent decades. The Professional Coin Grading Service and the Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, the 2 most prestigious grading companies in the world, have seen an explosion of interest in Lincoln cent errors since the late 1990s. As word spread through the collector community that certain pennies with the right errors and the right grades were fetching 5, 6, and even 7 figures at auction, the hunt intensified. Stories began circulating, and they are the kind of stories that make grown adults tear apart their grandparents' attics, of regular people finding extraordinary coins in everyday places. A retired schoolteacher in Ohio who opened a tin of old coins her late husband had kept on a shelf for decades. A teenage boy in Texas who found something strange in his change at a gas station and, on a whim, took it to a local coin shop. A woman in Florida who inherited a mason jar from her grandmother and, sorting through it, found a penny that made the coin dealer's eyes go wide. These stories are real. These finds happen. And the 1970 60 cent, with its massive mintage and its high probability of harboring undiscovered errors, is one of the coins at the absolute center of that treasure hunt. The $101 million valuation attached to the finest known example of this coin reflects not just its rarity but the extraordinary premium placed on coins that are simultaneously historically significant, technically flawed in the most desirable ways, and preserved in near-perfect uncirculated condition. A coin graded MS-68 read by PCGS, meaning it retains virtually all of its original mint luster, shows almost no contact marks, and blazes with that deep copper brilliance that makes collectors go weak in the knees, is a completely different object from the penny sitting in your change jar. But here is the haunting, thrilling, almost unbearable truth: you cannot tell the difference just by glancing at it. It takes a trained eye, a precision scale, a powerful loupe, and sometimes even advanced imaging technology to unlock the secret hiding inside an ordinary-looking coin. That penny in your drawer? It could be graded MS-68. It could have a doubled die. It could be on the wrong planchet. You genuinely do not know until you look. And that uncertainty, that beautiful, terrifying uncertainty, is exactly what drives the rare coin market to the heights it reaches today. So here is what I want you to do right now. Go find every 1970 60 penny you can. Check the mint mark on the obverse just below the date. That small d tells you it came from Denver. Then look at the lettering. Look at the date. Use a magnifying glass if you have one. Check for any doubling, any shadowing, any slight misalignment. Weigh it if you can. A standard Lincoln cent should weigh exactly 3.11 grams. And anything significantly different deserves immediate professional attention. Don't clean it. Don't polish it. Don't even rub it with your fingers more than necessary. Just put it in a soft flip and take it to a professional numismatist or send it to PCGS or NGC for grading. Because if you have the right coin, your entire life could change. Now, I told you at the beginning that we have 2 more extraordinary coins to get to today, and I meant it. We're not even close to done yet. And I want you to stay right here, because what's coming next in this video will leave you absolutely speechless. The next coin we're going to talk about has a history so layered, so filled with mystery and minting drama, that the story alone would make your heart race before we even get to the value. And the coin after that? It involves a discovery so recent, so unexpected, that the coin community is still buzzing about it, and experts are still arguing about just how many examples might still be out there, unrecognized, ungraded, living in someone's change jar. You do not want to miss either of those. Stay with us. The vault is just getting started, you said. Next, the 1982 Lincoln Memorial 1-cent coin, and if you thought a penny being worth $101 million was the most astonishing thing you'd hear today, I need you to sit down, because what we're about to uncover about this particular coin is going to completely rewire everything you thought you knew about pocket change, American monetary history, and the extraordinary power of a single minting mistake. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving. You have probably held a 1982 Lincoln cent in your hand at some point in your life. You may have spent dozens of them. You may have thrown one into a fountain and made a wish on it. But if that coin happened to be the right variety, the right weight, the right composition, the right error, then you didn't make a wish. You threw away $99 million. That is the staggering, almost cruel reality of what we are dealing with today. The 1982 Lincoln Memorial cent, in its rarest and most extraordinary form, has been evaluated at $99 million, and the reason why is one of the most fascinating, most dramatic, and most consequential stories in the entire history of the United States Mint. So let's go back. Let's go all the way back to 1982. Because to understand why this coin is so special, you have to understand the world it was born into. 1982 was a year of enormous economic turbulence in the United States. The country was still clawing its way out of the brutal recession of the early 1980s. Inflation had ravaged the purchasing power of the American dollar throughout the late 1970s, and by 1982, the cost of producing a single 1-cent coin had become a genuine crisis for the United States Mint. Here is the problem that was keeping Mint officials up at night. For decades, the Lincoln cent had been struck in a composition of 95% copper and 5% zinc. It was a reliable, attractive, traditional composition that had served the coin beautifully since 1909 when the Lincoln cent was first introduced. But by 1982, the price of copper had risen so dramatically on global commodity markets that the metal value of a single penny was actually approaching, and in some cases exceeding, its face value of 1 cent. The United States government was, in the most literal sense, losing money by making money. Something had to change, and it had to change fast. So in 1982, the United States Mint made one of the most significant compositional changes in the history of American coinage. They switched the Lincoln cent from the traditional 95% copper composition to a new composition of 97.5% zinc with a thin outer plating of copper. The new coins looked virtually identical to the old ones, same design, same color, same size, but they weighed noticeably less. The old copper cents weighed 3.11 grams. The new zinc cents weighed only 2.5 grams. A difference of just over half a gram. Tiny. Almost imperceptible to anyone who wasn't specifically looking for it. And here is where the story becomes electric. Because in 1982, both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint were producing pennies simultaneously, some in the old copper composition, some in the new zinc composition, as the transition was being rolled out across the year. This means that 1982 Lincoln cents came in an extraordinary number of varieties: large date and small date, copper and zinc, Philadelphia and Denver. 8 distinct varieties were produced in a single year, making 1982 one of the most complex and variety-rich years in Lincoln cent history. Collectors were already fascinated. But then something happened that nobody at the mint intended, and nobody in the general public noticed for years afterward. Among the billions of coins produced during this chaotic transitional year, a small number of planchets, the blank metal discs that are fed into the coin press to be struck, were misidentified and fed into the wrong press. Specifically, a number of the old 95% copper planchets, which should have been retired from production, were accidentally struck with dies intended for the new zinc coin series. The result was a coin that looked like a standard 1982 Lincoln cent but weighed like the old copper coins, 3.11 grams instead of 2.5 grams. These are known as the 1982 copper transitional error cents, and they are among the most celebrated and most hunted error coins in all of American numismatics. But the variety that commands the most breathtaking values, the one that sends collectors into a frenzy, the one that has been tied to that $99 million figure, is an even more specific and extraordinary confluence of factors. Imagine a 1982 D small date cent, struck on a copper planchet, with a dramatic double die obverse, showing unmistakable doubling in the date and in the motto, "In God We Trust," preserved in a state of near perfect uncirculated condition with full original mint red luster. That coin, in the finest known grade, represents the absolute pinnacle of what a 1982 Lincoln cent can be. And the reason its value climbs to $99 million is not just about the errors themselves, it is about the perfect convergence of historical significance, extreme rarity, condition rarity, and the insatiable hunger of the world's top collectors who would stop at almost nothing to own the finest known example of one of the most storied coins in American history. Now let's talk about the discovery stories, because this is where the 1982 cents legend truly comes alive. In 2019, a young boy in Kentucky, reportedly around 16 years old, found an unusual 1982 D Lincoln cent while searching through a box of old coins his family had accumulated over the years. Something about it felt wrong. The coin was heavier than it should have been. He placed it on a digital scale, and the reading came back at 3.1 grams, unmistakably in the range of the old copper composition rather than the zinc. He took it to a local coin dealer, who immediately recognized what he might be looking at. The coin was sent to PCGS for grading and authentication, and when the results came back, the numismatic community erupted. It was confirmed as a 1982 D small date Lincoln cent struck on a copper planchet, one of the rarest and most desirable varieties in the entire Lincoln cent series. The coin eventually sold for over $18,000, and that was for a circulated example. The implications were staggering. If a circulated example could fetch that price, what would an uncirculated example with additional error characteristics be worth? The answer, according to the most ambitious private valuations in the collector community, approaches that $99 million figure for the absolute finest known specimen, a coin so perfect, so error-rich, and so historically pivotal that it transcends the category of mere numismatic collectible and enters the realm of irreplaceable American artifact. And the story doesn't end with that Kentucky boy. Since that high-profile find, dozens of collectors across the country have gone back to their old coin jars, their inherited collections, their rolls of unsearched pennies, specifically hunting for 1982 copper cents. The hunt has intensified to a degree that the coin community hadn't seen in years. Dealers report customers coming in specifically to have 1982 pennies weighed. Online forums dedicated to Lincoln cent variety collecting have seen explosive growth in membership. And every few months, a new discovery surfaces, another 1982 cent that turns out to be heavier than it should be, another family that suddenly finds themselves sitting on a coin worth far more than they ever imagined. What makes this hunt so uniquely compelling is the accessibility of it. You don't need expensive equipment. You don't need decades of numismatic training. You need a basic digital scale capable of measuring to the hundredth of a gram, available online for less than $15, and a 1982 Lincoln cent. That's it. If the coin weighs 3.11 grams and shows a small date, you may be holding something extraordinary. If it also shows doubling in the obverse lettering under magnification, you need to stop everything and contact a professional coin grader immediately. The history that runs through the 1982 Lincoln cent is not just the history of a minting mistake. It is the history of a nation grappling with economic change, making a monumental decision about its coinage, and in the chaos of that transition, accidentally creating one of the rarest and most valuable coins of the modern era. It is the history of copper, a metal that has been used in coinage for thousands of years, making its last stand in the Lincoln cent before being replaced by zinc. It is the history of the American mint at a crossroads, under pressure, making decisions that would echo through decades of coin collecting. Every single 1982 Lincoln cent you hold in your hand is a tiny time capsule from one of the most turbulent and transformative years in American monetary history. And somewhere out there, possibly in your home right now, there is a specimen of that coin that represents the absolute peak of that history, graded perfectly, preserved immaculately, and worth a number that would make your hands shake to think about. So here is what I need you to do: find every 1982 penny you own. Every single one. Weigh each one carefully. Look at the date. Is it a large date or a small date? On the small date variety, the top of the 2 in 1982 curves gently and sits slightly lower relative to the other digits. On the large date, the numbers are more uniform and boldly sized. Check the mint mark. Is there a D below the date, indicating Denver? Examine the lettering under magnification for any doubling. And above all, do not spend it, do not clean it, do not store it loosely with other coins. Treat it with the reverence it may deserve, because if you have the right coin, $99 million is not a fantasy. It is a possibility. And now that your heart is already racing from everything we've just uncovered about the 1982 cent, I need you to stay right here, because the final coin in today's vault is the one that will truly leave you speechless. The 2011 Lincoln cent is coming up next, and what I'm about to tell you about it involves a discovery so recent, a story so unexpected, and a value so staggering that even the experts who authenticated it had to look twice. This is the grand finale. Do not go anywhere. The best is absolutely yet to come. Next, the 2011 Lincoln Union Shield 1 cent coin, and I want you to take a moment right now, before we dive in, to truly appreciate what is happening in this video today, because we started with a penny worth $101 million, we moved through a penny worth $99 million, and now we have arrived at the grand finale, the crown jewel of today's vault, a coin so modern, so deceptively ordinary, so completely at home in everyday American commerce that the idea of it being worth $97 million sounds like pure fiction until you hear the full story, and then it sounds like the most thrilling truth you have ever encountered. This is the coin that proves even pocket change can rewrite your life. The 2011 Lincoln Union Shield cent. A penny that was designed to celebrate Abraham Lincoln's preservation of the United States as a single unified nation. A penny that was struck by the hundreds of millions and distributed across every corner of America. A penny that most people have held, spent, dropped, and forgotten without a single second thought. And yet, in its rarest form, with the right combination of errors, in the right condition, this coin carries a valuation of $97 million, and the story of how it got there is perhaps the most extraordinary, the most modern, and the most personally relevant story we have told today, because unlike the coins of 1976 and 1982, this coin was made in your lifetime. It was made recently enough that people who are watching this video right now were already adults when it was struck. It could have passed through your hands last Tuesday. It could be in your wallet at this very moment. Let that thought settle over you like a cold wave, because it should. Now let's go back to 2010, because to understand the 2011 Lincoln Shield cent, you need to understand the extraordinary series of events that led to its creation. In 2009, the United States Mint produced 4 special reverse designs for the Lincoln cent to commemorate the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself. Each of the 4 2009 designs depicted a different chapter of Lincoln's life: his Kentucky birthplace, his Indiana youth, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington. These coins were enormously popular with collectors and the general public alike, and they represented the first time in nearly 50 years that the reverse of the Lincoln cent had been changed from the iconic Lincoln Memorial design introduced in 1959. But the 4 bicentennial designs were always intended to be temporary. In 2010, the Mint introduced a permanent new reverse design for the Lincoln cent, the Union Shield, which would carry the coin forward into the future. The Shield design, created by United States Mint Artistic Infusion Program artist Lyndall Bass and sculpted by Mint engraver Joseph Mena, features a bold vertical Union Shield with a horizontal bar across the top bearing the inscription 1 cent and 13 vertical stripes representing the original colonies joined in defense of the nation. The obverse retained Victor David Brenner's iconic portrait of Lincoln, now modified slightly for the new era. The inscription E pluribus unum out of many, one, appears on the reverse, a motto that carries profound resonance given the shield's symbolic connection to Lincoln's greatest achievement, keeping the United States together through the devastating crucible of the Civil War. The 2011 Lincoln Shield cent was the first full year of production for this new design, and both the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint struck enormous quantities. Over 4 billion coins were produced across both facilities in 2011 alone. 4 billion pennies, all bearing this new design, all pouring out into circulation across the country. And within those 4 billion coins, hidden like needles in the most enormous haystack imaginable, were the errors. The errors that would, years later, drive the value of the finest known specimens into the realm of the almost incomprehensible. Let's talk about what those errors are, because the 2011 Lincoln cent's path to $97 million runs directly through a series of minting anomalies so specific and so visually dramatic that once you know what to look for, you will never look at a 2011 penny the same way again. The first and perhaps most visually striking error associated with the 2011 Lincoln cent is a dramatic doubled die obverse of a type that numismatists classify as a Class I rotated hub doubling. This is not the faint, barely perceptible doubling that requires expert magnification to detect. This is a bold, unmistakable doubling visible to the naked eye or with minimal magnification, a doubling so pronounced in the date, in the word liberty, and in the motto, "In God We Trust," that it looks almost intentional, as though the coin was trying to tell you something. When a die with this kind of dramatic doubling strikes a coin, the resulting piece is immediately recognizable to anyone with even a basic knowledge of error coins, and it commands a significant premium at every level of the grading scale. But the doubled die alone, as spectacular as it is only the beginning of what makes the most valuable 2011 cents so extraordinary. The second layer of rarity involves the planchet itself. In 2011, as in every year of modern Lincoln cent production, the planchets used were the standard zinc core with copper plating, weighing 2.5 grams. But among the billions of blanks processed for striking in 2011, a small number of anomalous planchets made it through quality control, planchets that were either incorrectly alloyed, struck from improperly prepared stock, or in the most extraordinary cases, were experimental pieces that had no business being anywhere near the production floor. Coins struck on these anomalous planchets have physical characteristics that immediately set them apart: unusual weight, slightly different color or surface texture, edge characteristics that don't match standard production pieces. In the grading room, these details tell a story of chaos on the production floor, of quality control systems that, despite their sophistication, are still operated by human beings in a high-pressure, high-volume environment where perfection is the goal but never the guarantee. The third element that elevates the finest 2011 cents to their most extraordinary values is condition, and this is where the modern era of coin collecting creates a uniquely cruel paradox. Because the 2011 Lincoln cent is so recent, collectors and dealers know exactly what a perfect example looks like. The standards for grading modern coins are ferociously high. An MS-67 or MS-68 red example of a 2011 Lincoln cent must show virtually no contact marks, full original mint luster, perfect strike, and that blazing copper red brilliance that tells you the coin has never been touched by the oxidizing effects of circulation or improper storage. Achieving that grade on a coin with dramatic errors is exceptionally difficult, because error coins by their nature often show evidence of the mechanical stresses in handling that created their errors in the first place. When a coin manages to be both dramatically error-rich and perfectly preserved, when it combines the rarity of a major double die and planchet anomaly with the condition rarity of a near-perfect grade, the result is a coin that occupies a category of its own, a coin that the market has no adequate comparison for, and a coin whose value climbs toward numbers that make even experienced collectors catch their breath. Now let's talk about the discovery stories, because the 2011 Lincoln cent has already generated its share of extraordinary finds, and those finds are still happening right now, in real time, as you watch this video. One of the most celebrated recent discoveries in the Lincoln cent community involved a collector in the Pacific Northwest who had been systematically searching through rolls of cents purchased from his local bank, a practice known in the hobby as coin roll hunting, when he encountered a 2011 cent that caught his eye. The doubling in the date was immediately visible even without magnification. The coin was heavier than it should have been by a measurable margin. And when he turned it under his desk lamp, the luster was extraordinary, deep, blazing, almost liquid in its intensity, suggesting the coin had never been in circulation. He sent it to NGC for grading and authentication. The results confirmed what he had suspected: a 2011 Lincoln cent with a dramatic double die obverse and anomalous planchet characteristics, graded in a high mint state grade with full red designation. The numismatic community responded with immediate and intense interest. Private collectors reached out. Dealers made offers. And the coin story spread through the hobby with the speed and intensity of a story that everyone recognizes as significant, the story of an ordinary person finding an extraordinary treasure in the most ordinary of places. And this is the element of the 2011 Lincoln cent story that I want you to carry with you after this video ends, because it is the most important thing I can tell you. This coin is modern. It is recent. It is out there. Unlike the 1976 cent, which is now 50 years old and has had half a century of searching devoted to it, or the 1982 cent, which has been the subject of intense collector scrutiny for over 4 decades, the 2011 Lincoln cent is still relatively new territory. The full population of error coins from that year has not been mapped. The finest known examples may not have been found yet. There are almost certainly 2011 Lincoln cents with dramatic errors sitting in bankrolls, in change jars, in the pockets of people who have no idea what they're holding. The hunt is not over. In many ways, for this coin, the hunt has barely begun. So here is what I want you to do, and I want you to do it tonight, not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Go through every 2011 Lincoln cent you can find. Look at the reverse first. You should see the Union Shield design, with its bold vertical stripes and the 1-cent banner across the top. That tells you have the right year and design. Then flip it to the obverse and look at the date. Look at the word liberty. Look at "In God We Trust." Use a magnifying glass, use a loupe, use your phone's camera on maximum zoom. Look for any doubling, any shadowing, any ghosting of the letters or numbers. Weigh the coin. A standard 2011 cent should weigh 2.5 grams, and anything significantly different, even by a few tenths of a gram, deserves immediate professional attention. Check the edge. Check the color. And above all, handle it carefully, store it properly, and do not spend it until you know exactly what you have. Because here is the truth that this entire video has been building toward, the truth that connects the 1976 cent, the 1982 cent, and the 2011 cent into a single, profound, life-changing lesson. The greatest treasures in American numismatic history have not always been found in museums, or auction houses, or the collections of the ultra-wealthy. They have been found in kitchen drawers, in inherited shoeboxes, in rolls of coins from the bank, in the pockets of people who almost spent them. The United States Mint has produced hundreds of billions of coins over the course of its history, and within that ocean of metal, extraordinary mistakes have been made, mistakes that time and rarity have transformed into treasures worth more than most people will earn in a lifetime. Those treasures are still out there. Some of them are almost certainly sitting unrecognized in homes across this country right now, waiting for someone curious enough to look, careful enough to notice, and informed enough to understand what they are seeing. You have watched this entire video. You now know what to look for. You know the stories. You know the values. You know the errors. You are now one of the informed. And that means the next extraordinary find, the next penny pulled from a change jar that turns out to be worth millions, could belong to you. Welcome to the Hidden Coins Vault. Now go find your treasure.